ました。
始まる前から泣いてました。
本当にありがとうございました。
たくさんの感謝ね、伝えられたかな。
皆さんサポートがあってゆっくりは成り立ってました。支えてくださったね方々に心から感謝をお伝えしたいなというふうに思います。
ありがとうございました。
The moment Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara stood atop the podium at the Milano Cortina Olympics, holding Japan's first ever Olympic gold medal in pair skating, it felt like history itself had stopped to watch. Giant screens inside the arena replayed the same scene over and over again, the two skaters embracing, overwhelmed by emotion after achieving something no Japanese pair had ever accomplished before. Cameras from around the world were focused entirely on them. Every lens captured the tears rolling down their faces as Japan's national anthem echoed throughout the arena. To the world, it was a perfect moment of triumph, a dream fulfilled after years of sacrifice. But away from the spotlight, beyond the cameras and the celebration, another person was quietly crying. She was not an athlete. She was not a coach, a sponsor, or a member of the media. Yet the tears flowing down her face were just as real as those shed by the champions themselves. It was said that she cried as though her own children had just become Olympic gold medalists. Her name was Konosan, a 64-year-old woman originally from Kobe, Japan. She shared no blood relation with Riku Miura or Ryuichi Kihara. Yet for years, the pair had affectionately called her their Canadian mother. Today, I want to tell you the story of the woman who never appeared on the podium and was barely shown on television, yet whose presence may have been just as important as anyone else's in this remarkable journey. Because if we truly want to understand the weight of that Olympic gold medal, we first need to understand her story. Let's rewind the clock back to 2019. That was the year Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara officially formed their partnership and moved to Oakville, a quiet suburban town near Toronto, Canada. Oakville was not a famous tourist destination. It was not a city filled with towering skyscrapers or endless excitement. It was simply a peaceful town far away from everything they had ever known. For the two young skaters, it was a foreign world. They arrived knowing almost no one. The language was different. The weather was different. Even the food lining supermarket shelves felt unfamiliar. Their daily lives quickly became a routine of training, returning home, and preparing for another day on the ice. When practice ended, there were no lifelong friends waiting for them. Their families were thousands of miles away in Japan. They could hear familiar voices through phone calls, but they could not receive a comforting hug or sit down at a family dinner table. Every day was a battle against loneliness. Imagine trying to chase an Olympic dream while carrying that kind of emotional weight. Imagine waking up every morning in a country where everything feels unfamiliar and wondering whether all the sacrifices are truly worth it. Now ask yourself a simple question. What if there had been no one there to support them? What if nobody had noticed their struggles? Could they really have survived 7 long years in a foreign country and eventually reach the top of the Olympic podium? The answer may not be as obvious as many people think. In fact, Riku Miura herself once admitted just how difficult those early years were. Looking back, she revealed that there were times when she shut herself away in her room, overwhelmed by homesickness and loneliness. Think about that for a moment. This is a woman who would eventually become an Olympic champion, someone who appeared fearless and confident in front of thousands of spectators. Yet behind closed doors, she was simply a young person missing her family and struggling to adjust to life far from home. Athletes often look invincible when they're competing. They glide across the ice with strength, confidence, and grace. But once they step off the rink, they are human beings just like everyone else. They get lonely. They get homesick. They have moments when they wonder whether they can keep going. And during those difficult moments, support can mean everything. Sometimes dreams do not die because of a major failure. Sometimes dreams fade quietly because nobody is there to help carry the burden. That is why Konosan's role became so important. So who exactly was she? According to reports, Konosan first came to Canada as a graduate student at the University of Toronto. She later married a Canadian man and built her life there, spending nearly 4 decades in the country. Think about the significance of that. 40 years. A woman born and raised in Kobe crossed an ocean, settled in a completely different culture, and spent most of her adult life far away from her homeland. And she did it during a time when staying connected to Japan was far more difficult than it is today. There were no smartphones, no video calls, no social media, no instant messaging. International phone calls were expensive. Japanese products were harder to find. Speaking your native language every day was not something you could take for granted. In many ways, Konosan understood loneliness better than almost anyone. She had lived it. She had experienced the uncertainty of building a life in a foreign country. She knew what it felt like to miss home. She knew what it felt like to struggle with a new language. She knew what it felt like to wonder if you truly belonged. That is why it is impossible not to wonder if she saw something of her younger self in Riku and Ryuichi. Perhaps when she looked at them, she saw two young Japanese athletes standing exactly where she once stood decades earlier, far from home, trying to build a future, fighting loneliness, refusing to give up. Maybe that is why she could not simply stand by and watch. Maybe she remembered the kindness she once needed but never received. Maybe she decided it was her turn to provide that kindness to someone else. And that raises another important question. Why would a woman in her 60s dedicate so much time and energy to helping two young athletes she barely knew? Most people at that stage of life are focused on enjoying the rewards of their own journey. They spend time with family, they pursue hobbies. They finally slow down after decades of hard work. No one would have blamed Konosan for doing exactly that. Yet she chose a different path. She welcomed Riku and Ryuichi into her home. She cooked for them. She checked on them. She worried about them. She treated them like family. Nobody can say for certain what motivated her, but perhaps the answer lies in two simple things. The first is empathy. There is a special understanding shared by people who have walked the same difficult road. Konosan did not merely understand their loneliness intellectually, she understood it through experience. The second may have been something even deeper: pride. Not personal pride, but pride in seeing young Japanese athletes represent their country on the world stage. These were not just two skaters. They were carrying Japan's flag into international competition. And perhaps Konosan felt a responsibility to ensure that those young athletes would never feel completely alone in a foreign land. Perhaps she believed that no Japanese child chasing a dream overseas should have to suffer without support. For 40 years, she had carried her Japanese identity with her across an ocean. Maybe helping Riku and Ryuichi became a way of honoring that connection. There is something beautiful about the way people from the same homeland often find each other in distant places. They share language, culture, memories, and traditions. Even when separated by thousands of miles, those bonds remain powerful. That spirit of quiet compassion may have been the foundation of everything Konosan did. She never sought attention. She never asked for recognition. She simply reached out her hand to two young people who needed support. And sometimes that simple act can change lives. As we continue this story, we will discover exactly how Konosan supported Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara during their years in Canada, why they eventually came to call her their Canadian mother, and how those small acts of kindness became part of the journey that ultimately led to Olympic gold. Because sometimes the greatest victories are not built only by athletes standing under bright lights. Sometimes they are built by the people quietly standing behind them, making sure they never have to face the darkness alone. But what kind of comfort did that meal truly bring them? It was not only their stomachs that were filled, their hearts were filled too. In a kitchen far away from Japan, every bite of food prepared with care carried something deeper than flavor. It was not just dinner, it was the taste of home. It was the warmth of a mother's cooking. It was Japan itself, placed gently on a plate. For many Japanese people, a home-cooked meal made by a mother figure holds a meaning that words cannot fully explain. One simple bite can bring peace to the heart. One familiar flavor can make a person feel safe again. One warm dish can give someone the strength to wake up tomorrow and keep fighting. That is what Konosan continued to give Riku and Ryuichi. Through food, she delivered home to them. Through food, she gave them a mother's love. And that support did not disappear when times became difficult. In the spring of 2020, the world was shaken by the coronavirus pandemic, and Canada entered lockdown as well. According to reports, Riku and Ryuichi were unable to skate on the ice for nearly 2 months. For athletes, being unable to train is not just a physical problem. It creates a deep fear inside. It makes them question who they are, what they are doing, and whether the dream they have sacrificed everything for is slowly slipping away. They could not easily return to Japan. They could not meet the people they wanted to see. The future was unclear and every day felt heavy. During that lonely and uncertain time, Konosan reportedly continued bringing meals to them. If she could not sit with them, then at least she could send warmth. If she could not speak to them face to face, then at least she could tell them through food, "You are not alone." A meal quietly placed at the doorstep was not just a simple delivery. It was a silent message of love. I am watching over you. I care about you. You are still family here. When the world felt closed off, that single warm meal must have carried a power that no medal, no score, and no applause could replace. Konosan also worried deeply about their health and safety. Pair skating may look beautiful from the outside, but behind every graceful lift and throw is real danger. One mistake can lead to serious injury. Every time Riku was lifted high above the ice, every time the pair attempted a risky element, Konosan must have watched with the heart of a mother. Please do not get hurt. Please stay safe. Please come back unharmed. She must have felt both pride and fear at the same time. That is exactly what a mother feels when watching her children step into a dangerous dream. And even though they were not connected by blood, in every meaningful way, she had become their mother. So how did Riku and Ryuichi respond to that love? That is another beautiful part of this story. They never treated her kindness as something ordinary. They never forgot what she had done for them. Even after becoming world champions, even after winning Olympic gold, they continued to call her their Canadian mother. To me, that reflects something deeply Japanese. Do not forget the people who helped you. Respect those who stood beside you before the world knew your name. Honor the kindness you received, even after your life changes. The fact that Riku and Ryuichi continued to cherish Konosan after reaching the highest level of their sport proves just how real her love had been. True kindness does not disappear. It takes root in the heart and returns as gratitude. Between the two skaters and Konosan, there was a beautiful circle of love, care, and appreciation. Then came the Milano Cortina Olympics. By that point, Riku and Ryuichi had already survived so much. Homesickness, fear, injuries, uncertainty, the pandemic, and years of pressure had all shaped them. They had not reached the top overnight. At the 2021 World Championships, they finished 10th. At the 2022 Winter Olympics, they finished 7th. Step by step, year after year, they built their dream in the quiet town of Oakville, far away from the spotlight. Then in 2023, they reached the top of the world. And finally, in Milan, they captured Japan's first Olympic gold medal in pair skating. When that moment arrived, Konosan reportedly could not stop crying. Think about what she had seen. In 2019, two young skaters had arrived in a foreign town, uncertain and lonely. Riku had once shut herself away in her room from homesickness. Ryuichi had carried his own quiet burdens. And now, after 7 long years, they were standing on top of the world. For the woman who had watched that entire journey from so close, that gold medal must have felt overwhelming. As she watched them embrace on the ice, what memories came flooding back? The meals, the worries, the injuries, the quiet conversations, the lonely days, the long years. Those tears were not just tears of happiness. They were the tears of someone who had loved them like family and watched them grow into champions. And here's what I personally believe. When an athlete becomes #1 in the world, we often focus only on the athlete and the coach. But behind every great victory, there are always people whose names rarely appear in headlines. People who cook, people who drive, people who listen, people who worry, people who pray quietly from a distance. Konosan represents all of those unseen supporters. She was not a coach. She was not an official member of the skating team. She was simply a woman from Japan who could not ignore 2 young people struggling far from home. She invited them into her home. She cooked for them. She delivered food when they could not meet. She worried about their injuries. She watched over them with the heart of a mother. None of that appears in the official record. It does not show up beside their scores. It is not written on the medal. But perhaps those invisible acts of love formed one of the deepest foundations beneath that gold medal. And I want to make something clear. This story is not gossip. It is not about making wild assumptions about anyone's private life. It is about something much more meaningful. It is about the warmth of human connection. It is about people becoming family without sharing blood. It is about Japanese hearts finding and supporting each other in a distant country. Riku Miura, Ryuichi Kihara, and their Canadian mother, Konosan, created a story in Oakville that deserves to be remembered with deep respect. And after Riku and Ryuichi announced their retirement, I found myself wondering something. How does Konosan feel now? For 7 years, she cared about them almost every day. She cooked for them, worried about them, prayed for their safety, and watched their journey unfold. Then everything reached the most beautiful ending possible, an Olympic gold medal. Of course, she must feel proud, but perhaps there is also a quiet sadness. The kind of sadness a parent feels when children finally grow up and step into the next chapter of life. There is pride in seeing them succeed, but there is also a small emptiness in knowing that those busy, warm, ordinary days will never return in quite the same way. Still, I believe one thing will never change. Even if Riku and Ryuichi one day leave Oakville behind, as long as they continue to call her their Canadian mother, that bond will remain. A mother's love is not measured by distance. It is built through countless small moments. The sound of welcome home, the answer of I'm back, the warmth of a meal, the concern behind a simple question, the quiet comfort of knowing someone is waiting for you. Konosan gave Riku and Ryuichi many things: home-cooked meals, kind words, and motherly care. But perhaps the greatest gift she gave them was a place where they could feel safe. And because they had that safety, they were able to fly toward their dream with everything they had. Someday, when Riku and Ryuichi become the ones supporting the next generation, they will surely remember the warmth they received from Konosan. They will remember that kindness is not meant to stop with one person. It is meant to be passed on. That may be the most beautiful lesson Konosan gave them through her 40 years of life in Canada. A story of love that began in a quiet kitchen in Oakville will continue to live on, changing shape, moving from heart to heart, and reminding us that behind every great victory, there is often someone unseen who made the dream possible. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story of Riku, Ryuichi, and their Canadian mother touched your heart, please leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe and support the channel. Support the channel.